One of the questions on the extra credit question was what happens when there is a stretch to your atrium? How does that affect our blood pressure? One person remembered that there was a hormone involved, and one person actually remembered the name of the hormone. Atrial natriuretic peptide. Where is atrial natriuretic peptide produced? Not a trick question. It's atrial natriuretic peptide. In the atrium, absolutely. Right? When? Yeah, when the atria is stretched. What is the blood pressure supposed to be in the atria when the blood returns to it? 0. If the pressure is higher than 0, that stretches the atria, and the atria produces and releases atrial natriuretic peptide. And what did that atrial natriuretic peptide do? What does it target? Kidneys. Telling the kidney to do what? Release water, which has what effect on blood pressure? Well, it lowers blood volume, which does what to blood pressure? Decreases blood pressure. There you go. So if your atria is stretched, your heart would release atrial natriuretic peptide, releasing water from your kidney, bringing your blood pressure down. But that's okay. It was an extra credit question. And how is it regulated? Why do you say neurally? Yeah, which nerves in particular? No? Say again? No. What was the trigger for the release? Stretch. Yeah, baroreceptors or stretch receptors, right? Pressure or stretch receptors in the heart. So basically, it is neural via the stretch of the heart, or baroreceptors or stretch receptors in the heart. All right, questions on that one? Yeah, target is the kidney. What's the effect?
Kidneys release water, blood pressure.
Release more water, lowering blood volume, which lowers blood pressure. All right.
Would you say the kidneys release more water? Is that more like urinary, like shooting out water kind of thing?
So, I don't remember if we said it in this class or not. Your kidney's job is to filter your blood, right? That we know. During the course of the day, your kidneys filter about 200 liters of stuff out of them. Now, clearly, you don't make 200 liters of urine, and you don't have 200 liters of extra fluid in your body. So the vast majority, like 99% of that, is reabsorbed. So basically, what atrial natriuretic peptide does is normally the kidney's bringing all this stuff back, and atrial natriuretic peptide says, hey, don't bring back some of that water. Leave some of that water out there to leave in the urine. And so if we're not bringing it back into the blood, then that means our blood volume is lower and our blood pressure is lower because of that. All right? Great questions. Any others on this one? Let's talk about another hormone. Erythropoietin. Where is that produced? No, where is it produced? Oh, no, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, it is produced in the kidney. I'm sorry. It is produced in the kidney, absolutely. Right? What is its target? Red bone marrow. I like red bone marrow. Red bone marrow works. Hematocytoblast is perfectly acceptable answer as well. Absolutely. And what does it tell those hemocytoblasts to do? Say again? Both. It's going to trigger them, the hemocytoblasts, to divide into myeloid stem cells. Those myeloid stem cells into the proerythroblasts, and then also mature them faster. But you got the right idea. Basically, it is going to target the red bone marrow to produce red blood cells and mature those red blood cells more rapidly. Right? right, so again, no new information there. That's all stuff we've talked about. And we talked about it, but we didn't do it in these terms. How is this regulated? All right, humorally, definitely something in the blood. What is it in the blood? Okay, it isn't necessarily the red blood cell count, although I like that. That's good. No? Oxygen, the amount of oxygen. Right, it's the oxygen carrying capacity. So how much oxygen is in the blood? So it is humorally by the levels of oxygen. Now you are right, that could be related to a drop in red blood cells, but it also could be that the red blood cells are not producing enough hemoglobin. It could be that we're at Tahoe, where the breath we're taking in has less oxygen in it, right? So it could be any number of reasons. For whatever reason, there's less oxygen than there should be in the blood, and so we need to make more red blood cells, increase our carrying capacity. All right. Not a tremendous amount of new information there. We just kind of reorganized the information. Here's another one. None of this should be new, but it should be reorganized. Except for produced. Anyone? So let's start about this. What is calcitriol again? It's the active form of vitamin D. Absolutely. Where is that vitamin D potentially made? Skin, right? We can also get it from our diet as well, but in the skin. Where it is converted into its active form, where vitamin D is converted into calcitriol, actually occurs in the liver. So it's produced technically in the liver, although you could say skin as well. I would accept skin because that's where you make the vitamin D. Or liver is where we turn it into calcitriol. So I would accept both of those. What did we say the target of that calcitriol is? Yeah, like digestive system, small intestine is probably more specific because that's where most of the absorption takes place is in the small intestine. And what specifically does it tell the small intestine to do? Yeah, absorb calcium. So how would calcitriol production be regulated? Yeah, humorally via calcium levels. Perfect. Again, really no new information there. We're just kind of reorganizing what we already know. These last three are examples of something close to over a dozen different hormones that are produced by the digestive system. There's a tremendous amount of hormonal control of the digestive system, including hormones like gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin. There are a bunch of other ones that are produced as well. Right, we're going to move to the digestive system next, so it seems silly for me to waste any time identifying specific hormones, talking about their targets, talking about their effect, when we're going to be doing that in the next section. So for now, all you really need to know is that gastrin, secretin, and cholecystokinin are examples, and you probably just would need one of those, of a hormone that is produced and affects the digestive system. So if I show you the digestive system and ask you to identify a hormone that regulates its activity, just say one of these names. You don't have to worry about specific functions or specific regulations or any of that. We'll talk about those things when we get to the digestive system. There is one last hormone that I do want to talk about associated with the digestive system, and that one is called leptin. Anyone know where leptin is actually produced? It's produced in adipose, absolutely. It is produced by adipose, right? It has a couple of targets, but one of its main targets is actually the hypothalamus. people were incredibly excited when they first learned about this hormone. Anyone know what the effect of leptin on the hypothalamus is? Yeah, it makes you feel not hungry, the opposite. It makes you feel full. It makes you feel sated, right? So this is the one that is supposed to make you stop eating, right? Because you're full and you're not hungry anymore, right? When they found this, they thought they were onto a billion-dollar industry, right? All we have to do is make leptin pills. People will eat those leptin pills. Nobody will be hungry. Everybody will be beautiful. We'll be rich. Everybody's happy.
Did the opposite effects in the rat.
I'm sorry?
It did the opposite effects in the rat, didn't it? They started producing, what is it, less?
Well, no. So great. No, it isn't so much that. No, that. But what is the problem with that? Why didn't it work? Why wasn't this the miracle pill?
Regulation.
Say again.
Regulation, like down regulation.
Okay, downregulation, we could stop responding to it. That could be things that are a possibility. However, it turns out to be something even more simple than that. Hunger very rarely is the driving factor in determining when someone eats. Right? Someone eats lunch often not because they're hungry, but because it's the time of the day where they have that time. Or they're in the car and they have that knee-jerk reaction that every time they go by Taco Bell, they have to stop and get a Burrito Supreme or whatever. Or it's because they're angry, or because they're sad, or because they're depressed, or because they're happy, or because they're in a social environment. There's so many other factors that influence when a person shoves food into their mouth. Hunger is way down on the list of the factors that determine that. All right? We're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of this with Ozempic and stuff like that in the past couple years, because it seems to be having a similar effect where it suppresses appetite, but it also tends to have more significant impacts on other factors, that not just sating us in the hypothalamus. It actually can make people somewhat more queasy if they try to ingest larger amounts of food, so it inhibits food ingestion and things along those lines. Because it's been something that's been out for a while now, and especially now because it has actually been approved by the FDA for use in appetite suppressant and weight loss. One of the things that they're finding is it does absolutely nothing to mitigate healthy decisions and choices. So what happens to someone immediately after they go off the medications? Yeah, they go back to those exact same horrible eating habits they had before, and you get that yo-yo weight, and dramatic weight loss and gain is even worse than just being fat, right? So there's all these implications of that, but leptin was the first example of this, where we found a hormone in the body that plays a role in helping to cause and affect appetite that way. All right? As I mentioned, it's not very useful in that fact. However, doesn't mean leptin isn't important, because what produces leptin again? Adipose. And believe it or not, having fat is a good thing, right? Especially if you're a female. Why? Okay, that is one of the effects, but the reason for that is getting pregnant. As we talked about earlier, one of the things that happens with pregnancy is that you become a baby oven. The metabolic demand on the body to be able to produce and carry a baby to term is tremendous, right? My wife, when she was pregnant with our first child, Big, who was born in October, was huge during the summer, right? And so her favorite place in the whole wide world to go was the Cheesecake Factory. Why did she like going to the Cheesecake Factory? Exactly. Yes, the fact that it has cheesecake is nice. But the real reason she loved going there is it was freezing cold, right? They keep it at about 2 degrees below Celsius at the Cheesecake Factory. So we would go with her in our coats and our mittens and our gloves, and she was just there in all her glory because the metabolism was so high as a result of that. One of the ways you show your body that you are healthy enough to be able to produce and store and maintain an offspring is by having adipose. So leptin plays a huge role in setting and maintaining the menses cycle. As was mentioned, in some of these extreme athletes, These people who just on a whim like to go out on a weekend and run 150 miles for no reason at all, right? Get down to, some of these women can get down to 1.5% body fat. And as you mentioned, what can happen in those individuals when their body fat levels get that low? They can stop menstruating as a result of that. So that leptin, while it may not be that magical pill for making us all beautiful, it plays a huge role in helping to establish and maintain the menses cycle, the female cycles, and preparing the female's body for pregnancy. So it is a really important hormone that way.
You said when they drop their body fat such a low percentage, it stops their menstruation because the body recognizes there's not enough fat.
No, because you're not producing enough, well, yes, but the reason is you're not producing, if you don't have the fat, you're not producing leptin. And that leptin stimulates the hypothalamus. And so without that leptin to stimulate the hypothalamus, you're not going to be able to produce the gonadotropin releasing hormones, you're not going to be able to maintain the female cycle. We'll talk about that more when we get to the reproductive system because it's a more complicated process than that, but that's the short version of it.
How would it be regulated?
How is leptin regulated? I don't know. You don't have to put you can put a cross to that. It's more complicated than that.
Can you please also repeat on the function?
So the function is suppress appetite in the hypothalamus, but the other thing it does in the hypothalamus for women is help to stimulate the production of the gonadotropins. So it basically helps to establish and maintain the female reproductive cycle. Right? One of the speculations, one of the things that we've seen as a trend is that females' menses have started beginning earlier and earlier, you see, with kids. And one of the speculations for that is just the overall health. In general, nutrition and things like that are healthier. Typically, adolescents have a higher body fat. In fact, some could be obese, but that increase in body fat in adolescence may be one of the reasons why you have more fat, you're producing more leptin, and menses could begin earlier.
So is the reason why it has an effect on, women's reproductive is because the hypothalamus creates or targets the anterior pituitary, which creates those hormones?
So like I said, it's obviously a much more complicated process, but here's the short version. Here's the medium version. Hypothalamus produces the gonadotropin releasing hormone that tells the anterior pituitary to release follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, okay? That follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the ovary to produce estrogens. And it turns out estrogen inhibits the hypothalamus so that it can't produce as many gonadotropins. So if it can't produce gonadotropins, we can't regulate the process. Leptin stimulates the hypothalamus to produce the gonadotropins. So the leptin levels can overcome the suppression of the estrogens and start and maintain the female cycle. However, if your body fat goes away, you no longer have that leptin, the estrogens can inhibit it and can stop menses. Okay?
Sounds like a good,
Yeah, that's not a horrible thing.
no, I mean, to
Oh.
not have leptin.
Oh, to not have a menses? Well, I mean, if you don't want to have kids, I guess that's, yeah.
You'd be
Then there
skinny
you go.
and not have kids.
There you go. Then the world is yours. All right. Questions on that? All right. That is